Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com. Today we're going to be doing some simple Copic coloring. I'm gearing up for a 3-day Copic course I'm taking this weekend, taught by Michelle Houghton. You can visit her site at scrapweaver.com. Her site is called Copic in the Craft Room. I'm super excited to be taking this class, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be going from a complete newbie with Copics to being more comfortable grabbing Copics as my first choice for a coloring medium. So we're going to be using Lawn Fawn's Thanks a Bushel stamp and die set, and we'll also be using My Favorite Things Peekaboo window die. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm just using some 80-pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. I'm using some Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink to stamp the apple basket onto this cardstock. I actually stamped 4 of these so that my kids have 4 teachers, so I wanted to make a set of cards to give to them. So you're going to see me stamp quite a few of the apples here, and I try to position it so that I can just get it in 4 corners without having to move my stamps. And you can see that I'm double stamping each one of them. I want to make sure that the lines are nice and dark. So we'll go ahead and get started coloring. I'm using YG13, YG17, and YG25 today. Like I said, I am fairly new with Copics, and I did a few test apples with red, and I found that the reds that I had didn't really blend very well. I had recently ordered some new red markers for the course to prepare for the course, and I hadn't received those yet. So I went ahead and switched to a yellow-green because I found that this particular combination blended much better. I do feel that is half the battle with Copics so far in the experience that I've had is if you have the right markers that are going to blend together well, it's going to make the job significantly easier. You will have to work very hard to get a good blend if the markers aren't close enough together in their tone, if they're completely different. You're not going to end up with a good result. It's going to be a lot of effort, a lot of work, and you may be so frustrated that you give up and quit. So if you found that that is something that may have happened to you in your Copic experience, I definitely recommend Sandy Allnuck's Copic Jumpstart class. You can find her over on sandyallnuck.com. I believe her art classes are now on art-classes.com. So let's talk about the coloring. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with the YG13, and I'm just going around the base of the apple. In terms of light source, I feel like it would be shining down on the top of the apple, so that's where I'm leaving my highlight. Then I go in with the YG17 and put that down at the base, then the YG25, and then I bring in a little more of that YG13. So the reason that I'm leaving just the white highlight at the top is because I only want one layer of that YG13 at the very top. I want to leave as much highlight as possible. This is going to be particularly important too if you're not real comfortable using a higher contrast color just yet. I did, after I colored all of these apples, end up going back in with a darker green only at the base to add a little bit more contrast. So you can see it's leaving that highlight at the top, and then I'm just going back over the base with that YG17 to get a little more darker shade, and then blending that out with my mid-tone, which is actually the YG25. And I'll just keep using that same technique. So I'm starting with the lighter color, moving to actually my darkest color at the base, then I blend that out with the mid-tone, and then I come back in with the lighter color. And then if I feel like it needs additional contrast, I'm going to go back in with that darker color at the base. And there's our apples. So for the leaves, I opted to do a different set of greens. I didn't want them to be the same tone as the apples. I didn't feel like they would show up or stand out very well. We're going to work on the basket before we get to the leaves. So I'm going to start with E51, then I'll bring in E55, then we'll do E57. At a later point, after I've completed the basket, I add an E59 just at the very outer edges to add additional contrast. So I just started at the outer edges with flicking motions in towards the center with each darker color. I didn't completely cover the previous color and put less and less color. And that will maintain a really nice highlight. So for this, there would be a shadow underneath those horizontal staves, and so I'm starting kind of with some flicking motions down, and I wasn't really liking how that looked. I thought it was kind of a weird texture, didn't really look too realistic, and so I started coloring horizontally, which you can see here, which gave me a better blend. So I'm going to do a couple different techniques here. I want to make sure that I have enough depth underneath those staves so that there's good contrast. I will end up adding E59 at the end of this as well to get additional contrast under there. And so instead of using the tip of the marker, I decided to use more of the side of the marker so I didn't have those sharp flick texture to it. I'm still wanting more contrast. So I'm trying to get my contrast with that E57 before I switch to that E59. So at the bottom, I'm just using some warm grays. That's the W1 there. And I'll also use some W3. And I've already die cut my peekaboo window there. And I'm just checking to make sure how that looks, how far I need to extend out that shadow. And then I'll add some W3 there to darken that shadow right underneath the basket into the set. I stamped and heat embossed the Thanks a Bushel sentiment from the stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and line the back of the card panel with foam tape all the way around. This will add dimension and a more substantial feel to the card. And then you can see those are my practice apples where I was testing the reds and testing where I wanted the shading to be. I'm going to go ahead and die cut one of the green apples with the bite out of it and then add some additional shading to it. I apologize, I don't have the other leaves footage, but I'm using G46 and G40 for the leaves, and I'm just adding just a touch of shading to the bite out of it. I added some cool grays, and then I came in with almost like a flesh tone color. That was E000, and the cool grays were C1 and C3. I'll go ahead and attach that to the card front with just a little bit of matte multi-medium from Ranger. I didn't want to add any additional dimension. And that's the finished card. I received those red markers and completed the red version after filming this, and so you can see both of the cards here. I sure hope you enjoyed this card today. If you did, please hit the subscribe button below and subscribe to my blog at notableink.com, and have a great weekend. Thank you so much for stopping by.